Hello folks, Jesse right here with Ukudbian.com, and today we're going to be doing some real estate analysis in Ohio. We're going to be using Homepaths.com, their listing site, specifically so that I can show you some really cool tools, especially for novice investors. These are great to get started with. We're going to talk about rent calculators, how you can tell how much you can expect to bring in for a rental property each month. We're going to talk about things like vacancy rates and crime rates and why those things aren't always as important as you think they might be. So we're going to start out at homepath.com. I'm going to do a search for properties under $20,000 in Ohio. What I do here, I start out by listing everything from low to high, and then after that updates, I will also make the maximum price $20,000 because in Ohio you shouldn't have a problem finding a good property for under $20,000. I already found this property and I liked it, so instead of making you waste a bunch of time while I find a property that I like, I'm going to go ahead and pop over to that one. This one is a first look property, which means that for the first X amount of days, usually 21, Homepath does not open it up to investors. And one of the reasons I recommend looking at property every single day is that you can find these properties, and if it looks interesting to you, you can go ahead and spend the time and go look at the property physically before it gets to the end of this first look. Now, I might would wait until a couple days before that first look is up. That way you don't waste your time if somebody does buy it in that phase. But especially when we're talking about this price range, you're not going to be able to get a loan on the property, and people that are looking to move into a house typically don't have cash or a lot of cash. So your chances are still pretty good that it won't get past that first look phase, even though it will happen frequently. But still, you want to be ready to pounce as soon as the property opens up to investors, because there are going to be a lot of investors that are going to be looking at a property if it's a good property in a good area in a good market where they can get a good return. So that's the kind of properties you're looking for. So go ahead, like I said, look at property every day and try to find the good ones and get all of your ducks in a row before it opens up to investors so you're ready to pounce. Now this property is $10,900. When I look for property, I look for a property that I can have that needs a rehab, that other people might be scared to buy, but it's really not as bad as it looks. For instance, I want to be able to paint, I want to be able to put new floors down, and I want minor repairs that I can handle myself without spending a lot of time. If I have to rip out walls, then I'm probably not going to go for that property unless I just have a lot of time on my hands, or it's the kind of project that it's new to me and I want to learn how to do it. But for the most part, new paint, new floors, new appliances, and that's it. So let's look at this property here and you'll see what I'm saying. Nice backyard, probably a broken window. That's also acceptable because windows are very easy to fix. See the floors in here, they need to be replaced. Everything needs new paint. It looks like it has acoustic tile ceiling, which is great normally. This is something else that's also acceptable. It's also great that it has a stove in here. Usually Homepath won't leave appliances unless they work, so that's good to see. But something else that I will do is when drawers or cabinet doors are missing, that doesn't bother me either. I'll make something that might come close to matching, or I might buy a door or drawer facing, but usually it's not a big deal. So it happens a lot, and my stuff never perfectly matches, and nobody ever bats an eye when I rent it out. So obviously new floors in this as well. Looks like storage room or garage. That's always nice to have. This right here, easy fix. New plaster, new patch, whatever, and then paint. I thought this was kind of interesting. It looks like the entire bathroom has this shower liner on the walls, and it looks kind of cool. It's an easy, neat little trick to cover up probably really ugly looking walls. But the bathroom looks like it's had some work done recently. Again, paint, floors. Same thing. You can repair that door And there are lots of ways to, I'm a big fan of repairing things. There are lots of ways to save a ton of money by repairing things like doors and faucets and so on and so forth, as opposed to replacing them. Of course, maybe a faucet wasn't a good example, but so anyway, all in all, this property from the pictures looks pretty good. Also, of course, you'll want to do your basement check for structural issues, major cracks, major leaks, things like that. So, but yeah, all in all, I really like the look of this property. Next thing that we're going to look at, we're going to do a quick analysis of, how much money we can expect to make, what are our expenses going to be. I don't see taxes. Well, here's what we'll do. This address right here, I'm going to see if Zillow has anything on it. Let's see what the tax history is. Okay, in 2014, this says that the property taxes was $667. That's not necessarily always the case. You'll want to definitely check up with the courthouse or the local tax assessor. But for this video, we're going to just trust that that's correct. So taxes, I'm just making a note here, $667. Of course, that was back in 2014. It rises every year most of the time, so we'll say $700. All right, and let's go back to the next portion, which is the rent info. Now, right here, built into Fannie Mae, they usually in urban areas and areas where they have enough data, they'll provide statistics on low rent, median rent, high rent. And you can see right here, the median rent is $650 a month. Now, this, you'll notice, or maybe you'll notice, is based on 43 comparable rental listings in a half-mile radius around this property. So that's pretty good. That's a nice, dense location. It's a smaller radius. Sometimes you'll see it's based on 17 listings in a 3-mile radius. Well, that's not as good of an indicator as to what you can expect to get in rent. But we're going to take a look at this button right here where it says see more. If you click on that, it's going to open up a fresh report. And of course, I know that I do this in other videos, but I'm creating this video as if you've never seen any of my others. I do provide a lot of really good content, I believe, on my channel. If you're not subscribed, I highly recommend it. I also recommend signing up for my email list, because these videos may not stay on YouTube forever, and if you want to have access to them, you might want to sign up for that. So anyway, this is why this is an excellent property to buy. First of all, this report looks pretty good. It breaks it up into sections. You have the low, median, and high for the zip code. That's the gray bar. You have the low, median, and high for the rent within that particular radius that this report is based off of, in this case, half a mile. And then you also have what this report claims a Section 8 rental will go for, which this says $1,000. That's what this gold bar is right here. The problem with that is that it is a little bit deceptive. This bar is not always accurate. And the reason is sometimes it includes utilities. It includes not only what Section 8 will pay for rent, it will also include what Section 8 will pay for utilities. And so if it includes those figures, which it often does, then it's going to be off. So I'll tell you how to figure that problem out later. The thing about it is, if it does include utilities, in my experience, I've always been able to get them to go within $90 of that figure. So for instance, if this says $1,000, if it includes utilities, then I'll probably be able to get a rental amount of $910. So that makes everything change. A lot of people, they're going to be looking at properties in this area, and they're going to think to themselves, well, I'm only going to be able to bring in between $550 and $650 a month, because that's what the median rent is in the area. I'm a different sort, and I'll of course always be planning on or hoping for the $850 a month, whether I'm renting to Section 8 or not. But that's because of the particular markets that I work in. Now, there's a big difference between $650 a month and $950 a month. A lot of folks don't want to deal with Section 8 because they think it's so much headache. But when you think about the fact that you're making an extra $3,600 a year on a property that you only paid $9,000 for, and we'll talk about that in a minute, that kind of changes things. So, but that being said, Section 8 is not really a hassle if you know what you're doing. You hear horror stories all the time. People that say, oh, these Section 8 tenants trashed my house. Well, you probably weren't taking care of those tenants. Section 8, if someone is ever evicted while they're on the Section 8 program, they can never get Section 8 again. That's my understanding. When you trash someone's house as a Section 8 tenant, that's a big no-no, and you will probably never be able to get Section 8 housing again. So if you're taking care of your tenants, if you're not letting water pour in onto their furniture, and you're making sure that the furnace works, making sure that the AC works, if you just treat them like normal people, just the way that you want to be treated, then I don't think that you can expect to have your house trashed by these tenants. So, it's really based on a stereotype that is propagated by media, and it pisses me off. But that's all I'm going to say about that. We're going to, for the sake of this analysis, instead of going with this Section 8 figure, this gold bar, I'm going to say that we're going to be renting the property out for $850 a month. All right, so now we're going to take a look at this next section under the listing on homepath.com. This section right here, really anything that's highlighted, if you click on the View Now button, it's going to take you to the same website that we're going to go to now. It's going to have all kinds of really good information about vacancy rates, crime rates, other data like what HUD will really pay, things like that. So we're going to go click on that, click Continue. It's going to take us to another website. And like I said, this is going to show us all kinds of really cool data. Let me just make this a little bigger. There we go. You can see the population. You can see the average salary of the people in the community. This is very interesting to me, the vacancy rate in this area, which technically it isn't really Cleveland, but I just said Cleveland because it looked like it was close to it when I looked very quickly on the map. But the vacancy rate is only 13.7%. That's not very high. Typically, the higher that number is, things change. A lot of people would say the higher the vacancy rate, the harder it is to rent out your property. That's not really true for me, the way that I do things, but that's because I know how to operate in either market. But for someone that's a newbie, it's really nice to see a low vacancy rate, anywhere between 0 and 15%. To me, I consider that a low vacancy rate. So you'll also notice that about half the population rents, and not half, but close to half, and a lot closer to half owns their property. So it's going to make it harder for people to rent a decent property in this neighborhood because the vacancy rate is so low, and so they're going to be more motivated to either pay a higher price. It's going to change the market when it comes to a Section 8 tenant. It's just going to be, it's going to allow you to charge what you want to charge in rent. So some other things that I look at here, I don't really care about the statistical temperature and weather, but that is nice. If you were planning on moving to an area, you might want to look at these figures a little bit more. You can see things like education. This is something that I look at. I want to see how many people are making less than 10,000. How many people are going to be making less than 15, 20, 25. That gives me an idea of how many people might be on Section 8. Again, that's not a big deal. Wow. This is kind of a game changer right here. This is the fair market rents according to HUD, and this is what I trust over that rent range report. And you can see that it says $824. Now, when I do my rental analysis, I always take $90 out of this because that's I know that that's the number that I came up with in my particular market. I don't know what it would be like in other states, but for me, I've always been able to get just $90 shy of whatever this figure is. So we're going to actually go back and we're going to change what we think we can get our rent amount, our rent to be, and we're going to change this to $734 because that's what I trust. So, and then we have crime rates, and the crime rate in this area is really, really low. I'm used to investing in areas where the burglary rate is 4 to 5 times higher than the national average. The murder rate. I invest in cities or a city that it's constantly on the top 5 most dangerous places to live. When I purchased my first property in this city, the murder rate was 9 times the national average. It's gone down a little bit, but rate was like 5 times the national average. And so this is actually, for me, this is a pretty good representation of the area as a whole. I don't really trust those websites that they'll give you specific. They'll tell you, you look at an address and it'll say, well, somebody was killed like 2 blocks down, and there was a act of violence over here. There was an assault, charge over here. There was a burglary over here. It's not that I don't trust that those particular events happened. I do. But what I find is when you get into the more rural areas, they don't have any data. And so if you want to find out how bad the crime is in that area, then you'll need to go somewhere else like this. Because even in those rural areas where maybe those other sites would have said, they don't have any crime data whatsoever, or maybe 1 burglary in the whole town, this will tell you that the burglary rate is, 4 to 5 times the national average, or just whatever. So that's why I like their crime info on this particular website. Now, let's see, what else do we have? There was, we talked about vacancy rates. We talked about fair income or fair rents according to HUD. We talked about their crime rates. The reason that I don't worry about crime, everybody that rents a house from me, they're safe. They're safe because, one, they're not criminals. They're not buying or selling drugs. Not major drugs, anyway. They're decent people, and I protect the property. If it's in a higher crime area, then I'm going to put an alarm system in there for them. I'm going to make sure there are bars on all the windows and doors. I'm going to do things that maybe some other landlords wouldn't do. I'm also going to be over there anytime there's a problem with the property, and when that happens, I'll always take a look around and make sure that everything's up to snuff and that they don't have a reason to be worried at night. Things like putting up security lights. Anyway, I'm rambling. I think that we've covered everything. I'm going to very quickly just finish up this analysis here. Obviously I would have to look at the property, but I think that we would probably have $7,000 or $8,000 in it, if the worst can be expected. If we had to work on the central heat and air, if there were some gas issues, things like that. I think $8,000 is a fair expectation. Obviously, if I can't get my money back in 2.5 years, I don't want the property, because there are plenty of properties where I can get my money back in 2.5 years. So we're just going to say $8,000 in repairs. Now, Fannie Mae will usually accept 80% of the asking price. So if this is $11,000, then you can, bid $8,800. You might want to go with 9 just to beat out any other adjusters, or $9,002, something like that. Did I say adjusters? Beat out any other investors. We're renting it out for $734 a month. That's if we go with Section 8. That's kind of worst case scenario. I'm hoping that we could actually rent it out for $850 a month, and that those figures were old, that were from Neighborhood Navigator. There's obviously something going on with rent range versus Neighborhood Navigator. There's some sort of disconnect there. So I'm going to base this analysis off the lower end because we don't want any surprises. If Zillow is correct, our taxes are going to be roughly $700 a year. Obviously, we can price shop, but for this video, I'm saying that our insurance is going to cost $800 a year. And we're going to have miscellaneous expense budget of $1,200 a year, bringing our total expenses to $2,700, which means we can expect, if we rent the property out for $734 a month, a yearly profit of $6,108. Now, like I said, unless I can get my money back in 2.5 years, I don't want the property. So 6,108 times 2.5, that's $15,270. That's what I want to be in this property for. That would mean that I would still go look at this property in person. I would look to see how much do I really think I'm going to have in this property. I would total up what I believed it was going to cost for paint, both interior and exterior. I would look to see if there were any kind of major issues with any structural issues. If not, can I put tile down in the house, or do I have to use engineered hardwood or laminate flooring? What can I get away with using? What's the cheapest materials I can use for the flooring? And I would write out a detailed list and just see, can I get this property completely finished for $15,270? And I think that when you're creative and when you have a limit, you have a budget, and you say, I am going to stick with this, I think that the answer to this particular property is probably yes. I probably could be in it for maybe even less than that, maybe $14,000. But if it really did cost me $8,000 to repair this property, I wouldn't buy it, because I'm going to probably be spending $9,000 on the property. Now, one cool thing is, if you're in a rural area, I doubt this is the case for this. I mean, I'm sure there's probably plenty of investors in this area, but if there weren't, what Fannie Mae would do is they'd leave this property up for maybe 2 to 3 months after it passed the first look stage, and then they would drop it 10%, and they would again probably accept 80% of that, and then every month after that they would drop it down 10%. At least that's how they used to do it back in the day. I haven't bought a property where I sat and waited on it like I used to in a while, so maybe they don't do that anymore, but even within the past 2-3 years they've done that. So and you can see that if you take Fannie Mae properties that maybe have been on the market for a while, and if you go over to Zillow and you look at the price history, sometimes you can see the different listings. This is a rental listing. Hey, check that out. They had a listing on GoSection8.com for $700 a month. That's what they've been trying to rent this for. I can imagine if you were trying to rent this property for $700 a month in the condition that it's in, that's ridiculous. I mean, that's in horrible condition to be renting a property in. All right, guys, I'm going to stop rambling now. The moral of the story is try to find a property where you can get all of your money back in 2.5 years. Pay cash. Be sure to check the rent range. Be sure to check Neighborhood Navigator. You might also want to actually save this link, bookmark this link, so that when you go back and look at other properties that aren't listed on Homepath, you can still punch in that zip code and pull the data for the zip code that you're looking for at the time. All right, guys, that's it for this video. If you're still looking for the best way to get started in this business, if you want to build a long-lasting passive income for yourself, if you want to be able to retire within the next 5 to 10 years, then go ahead and click the link below. It's in the description. It's a way to download my free ebook called The Investor's Blueprint. It's only 17 or 18 pages. It's just designed to get you started. You don't have to be making a lot of money to get started in this business. I was only making $35,000 a year when I bought my first property for cash. I never used credit. So if that sounds like something that you would like to do, then go ahead and click the link below, download that free Investor's Blueprint, and I will see you guys in the next video.